All right, we're live.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Mindful Nuggets. It's another Monday. How quickly did that happen? Welcome back, everyone. All right. Well, as you know, here at Mindful Nuggets, we do, as Mr. William just said, real talk. So tonight we have a special guest with us, and I'm so thankful that she agreed after a very long day of being in an airport in a plane and trying to get back to the state of Missouri. She made it, and I'm so grateful. So today we have Ms. Darlene Hertz with us today. And I'm super excited about this conversation that we're going to have. How about yourself, Mr. William, before I introduce Miss Darlene?
I'm doing well. A little challenged with all this weather ping ponging back and forth and pollen in the air. It's presented its own set of challenges, but I am well and grateful to be here. But I am curious how Mondays keep approaching so fast. It's almost like a time continuum
I
or
am
time
so with
compression
you.
more so. You think time is linear, but the older you get, it becomes exponential. It flies by. So I
That
don't know how
is
that
so
perspective
true.
happens.
So true. My mother actually told me that I needed to enjoy time. And I never could understand what she was talking about, enjoy time. She's like, because when you get older, time just flies by. And next thing you know, you've had decades pass and you didn't even realize what has actually occurred. So she always made it very clear to enjoy the chapters and the time of your life. So I'm sure we'll
I'm
have.
dedicating a chapter in the book called Time Intimacy. We all need
There
to
you
learn how
go.
to live presently
Ooh, well,
in the
we'll
moment.
talk about that as we
Another
continue
time.
into this tonight. So before
But
we
we
get
have a
started,
guest here that
everyone,
we want to highlight, and she's
we
very dear and special to us. And we're glad that she was able to join us tonight. Even though we've all had challenges, but life doesn't give any excuses. It goes on.
That's
That
right.
is true
Well, that is
story.
so true. All right, everyone. So, again, welcome back. I want to invite you to stay here with us tonight. Hit that subscribe button if you will. And tonight we have our special guest, Miss Darlene Hertz. She is the CEO at U Empowered Services. She is a success trainer and business performance strategist. She works with business owners to stop the sabotage, uncover your limiting beliefs. I think we've been talking about that here, have we not, for the past few weeks? And create that business and life that you deserve. So, Ms. Darlene, welcome tonight to Mindful Nuggets. Would you like to say a little bit more about what you do? Because that didn't really cover all of it that I know you do.
So thank you. Thank you both, William, and um, for having me on. I appreciate it, as always, and Michelle for the invitation. And so really what I do is I got started about probably 15 years ago. I became super curious, given some extenuating circumstances going on in my life about what could be because I was stuck. I couldn't figure it out. And started working with a coach. At the time, she was straight up a mindset coach for me. She's since become a business coach as well. And how to really navigate this whole stuckedness, if you will. And once I got started on it and I saw how quickly we can really shift our states, as we're talking about today, our identity and how all of that works, I became very, very curious and started training neuro-linguistic programming. And then fell in love with it and decided I wanted to bring it here to St. Louis to help people really build the business and life that they deserve. And I just never looked back. I mean, I have an insatiable appetite about mindset, neuroscience, all of the things, and really love specifically how in terms of how we're speaking tonight, how um, NLP is really the tool that God asks of us, which we will get more and more into it. And it's just been, I will tell you, it's been a lifesaver for me. And then that's what I just love helping other people use the tools to do the same thing for themselves.
Literally,
That's
will you
awesome.
give the definition of NLP so the audience knows exactly what that is before we get
Sure.
rolling with it?
So neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro is our mind, our neurology, how we receive information via our five senses, right? Taste, smell, think, or feel, see and hear. And that stores differently for every one of us, given our filtering system, i.e., experiences. And then linguistics are our communication with ourselves and with others, what that looks like, the words that we use, and also nonverbal language. And then programming is kind of who we show up in the world, given the people that kind of got a hold of us after we were born, i.e., our parents, our first teachers, our grandparents, our siblings, all the adults in our world, and how we show up in the world based on all of that. And then for me, when I talk about the programming, I like to talk about how it is that just like a computer, we can reprogram ourselves in those areas of life that do not serve us.
I look at it like that, and kind of like engineering and circuits. I've got a design a circuit that has an input and it has an output. I don't like that output, but I'm kind of stuck with this input. So I'm going to create a different adjustment, a feedback loop, or whatever adjustment to the circuit. Then I get a different output. But I also can change the input too. So I like to associate too the programming as like records as well. You
Like
know,
what?
look, records. You know how your grandparents used to play the old vinyl
Mhm.
72s on it, and you get used to listening to that music, and you hear that music over time on it. But a lot of times we have that same record play a lot in our life. We don't know to pick that thing up, take it off, put another one on.
Yeah. Yeah. Time for a different beat, so to speak.
It's in a sense, yeah, it's time to take that one off. Or if it's
Yep.
got a scratch, it keeps bouncing back and forth, holding you back. Probably time to
Yes.
replace that one.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
All right. Well, before we dive too much further into all of this tonight, because we're going to get deep tonight, I can promise you that. And our topic for tonight is the words that built you and how to change them. So we are coming out of the mask, coming into your identity, being authentic, right, in yourself, and the words, because words matter, right? We talk about this so much here at Mindful Nuggets about how words matter. So, Mr. William, kick us off tonight with the word.
Well, I was wondering if everybody brought the wheelbarrows if we're digging that deep, because we got a lot of dirt to shovel out.
We do. We do.
So really, a lot of people speak in history, and sometimes they speak present or they speak in the future, but they're speaking as they're describing their reality now, not what they're creating. And a lot of times our words they're using are not supporting us in such a way that's moving us forward. It's keeping us stuck in the rut, like Darlene was saying earlier. And we don't know that consciously because we don't understand the power of the word at all. And even in scripture in Proverbs 18:21, power, life and death is in the power of the tongue and how you speak it on it. And being an entrepreneur and experiencing that for decades, when you go out and you plant seeds, being the words that you use, and you're expecting a harvest, but the harvest never comes. That gets real frustrating over time and quite destructive over the decades when you're putting all your life effort into something that's not going anywhere. It leads to some major catastrophes. I know it did for me. So how do we speak really matters. Our narratives matter, what we believe, what we inherited, like Darlene was saying, from generations passed on to it. We're picking up other people's suitcases. A lot of times we don't even know we're carrying their suitcases, much less our own. And I really like, if you would, Darlene, speak to that a little bit from your perspective, how especially like in the business world, also in the relationship world, of how our words are used to communicate, but our words are not being understood for what they truly mean and how we can use those words to really build something and not detract from what we really want in our life.
Yeah. So first of all, when it comes to communication is only 7% words.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to note. For me, I always think so use those words wisely.
Exactly.
Pick and choose, right? With 38% of that being our tonality. So I can say, I love you, or I can say, I love you. Same exact words, different tonality, right? Even I put some 55% physiology in there. And that's really how communication happens. So it's so, so, so important for us to choose our words in a way that serve us. Now, here's the other kind of caveat, if you will. And I'm a coach, so I always look at this in the perspective of coaching, right? So when we say something like, I'll just give an example. I had a client who always talked about how it was her job to be a supportive wife. And every time we had these conversations over and over again, she would use the word supportive. And so I got super curious about that one day because what one of the issues was that she was being so supportive of her husband that she couldn't define her own life, or she couldn't make her own life, or she couldn't grow her own business because she was being so supportive. So one day I asked her, "What does supportive mean to you?" And so the assumption is in communication is that the word supportive, what it means to me, it must mean the same thing to her. And that's just not true. And that's where so much of our communication breaks down, is thinking that what using our language and our meaning behind our language towards other people and expecting them to receive it instead of finding out what that language actually means to them. And that's just like a game changer. And as soon as she looked at me, she goes, "What do you mean? What does supportive mean to me?" I go, "I'm just super curious. What does it mean to you?" Well, she realized just verbally expressing it, she just kind of backed herself into a corner as she was saying it. And we just started laughing. I go, "So maybe we could redefine what supportive looks like to you." And that was the beginning of a great, great journey for her, because once she realized that, she has since started her own business, she has another business that she's a part of, and just things started, and she was becoming an empty nester. That was another thing that she was looking at. And so now she's just this happy woman in a life of great marriage, great communication with her husband, and it just all has worked out really well for her just based on what she learned.
That's awesome.
That's
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 great to
amazing.
hear.
And I heard a couple of things in that, and I heard projection of
Mhm.
what that word is. This an assumption to meaning to somebody else receives it that the same way. And that's definitely not true. My wife
But
and I
I
had to
also
learn that.
heard her embodying it. She was
Yeah, it's a
very
body, and
embodied.
that
Yeah.
was the second thing I was going to
Yeah.
say. It's identity. She made her own role
Mm-hmm.
out of that word,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and self-defined it. It sounds like, and
Well,
what
she
the
defined it
situation
according
called
to
for.
her experiences. I mean,
Mhm.
like I just gave you like the short version, right? So we looked at that, like what did supportive mean within her experiences as a young woman, as a daughter, as a mother, I mean, cousin. We could take it back, right? And
Mhm.
so based on her experiences, that's just how we define our identity too, is based on our experiences that we bring to the table. And so that was, I don't know, I probably geek out about it a little too much. And I love helping people realize that even the word love, it can definitely mean something different to me than it does to either one of you, right? Or anyone listening.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just that's why it's so important to know what that means to that person, for sure.
It really is. I mean, love is as a massive scale. Love like a friend. Love like it being very intimate, even as a friend or a partner. And then there's a thing called agape love that only God is capable of giving to us. That's way above our understanding a lot of times. And
Yeah.
so it's really, I mean, that if you were to pick a word to what love meant, you would get answers all across the board of what
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. It's
But
actually that's part of my story, because I went to a spiritual director for years and years and years. And when the first thing I would walk into her and I'd say, "So Barb, let's discuss it. What is love?" That began the caveat of our conversation all the time, because I was in a position to where I felt like everybody who said they loved me, it was a conditional love. Even my God. It was a very if you want me to love you, then you must act like this. You must do like this, right? And once I made the clear distinction between conditional and unconditional love, for me that was the turning point of, oh, wait a minute. My God is an unconditional love God, you
Right.
know.
Absolutely.
And that was just such a huge, huge thing for me. And like you say, love comes in all shapes and sizes and with all kinds of experiences.
It
you
really
know.
does. It's first fruit, first and most part. And what you just said too, we get conditioned to believe that word is conditional. You just stated the if-then statement
Mhm.
in logic. If you let me,
100%.
then you're going to do this.
Yeah,
And it's
we
and
talk
then
about
a lot
this,
of us are like that. We don't even know it. And this is the beauty
right?
of how NLP works.
Right. That's it. And I talk about this all the time, especially when love comes up, because I knew kids in my lifetime who would get in trouble and their parents would say, I'm gonna spank you, beat you, probably use the term beat you. I'm gonna beat you because I love you and I want you to be good. So when that person grows up, guess what they think love is?
Punishment,
Guess what they
Absolutely.
do to their spouse? Guess how
punishment,
they handle life? Because it's
yeah,
all they
punishment.
know. It's
No,
their
it's the way that
conditioning.
they were conditioned from the very
Mhm.
beginning. I mean, we parent based on how we were parented.
Mhm.
Again, there's no book on that. So being someone who has really reflected on her past parenting as well, and I have addressed this with my own mother, like I explained to her, I only parented with how I was taught.
Mhm.
It was what I knew. Now, was that the best way? No. When you break it down and you go through the past of how it was, and then you go back to how she was parented. So
Yep,
you see these patterns.
100%.
Yeah, this pattern of behavior has continued on. And
Mhm.
now I
And you
watch
believe
my
there's
own
nothing wrong with
children.
that. It's more
Yeah,
importantly, you think that's acceptable.
right.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, again, it's all you know. For
Mhm.
one of our what we call presuppositions in NLP is that people do the best they can with the tools they have.
Yep.
And I also call that the great forgiveness clause.
Mm,
Because when we can look at, we'll just use our parents because I always say they're our greatest metaphors, right?
absolutely.
And I am a person that had a phenomenal childhood in terms of very little drama trauma. And yet I still had my issues, right? Because my neurology stored things, those five senses, right? Stored things in my neurology as trauma or whatever, right? And so when I looked at that and I thought, well, my folks did the best they can with the tools they had, then I get to look in the mirror and say, guess what, girlfriend? You did the best you could with the tools you had too.
That's right.
And my next statement is, and do you want new tools or not? Right? Like years and years ago, I read in Max Lucado, I don't even know what book it is of his. I just remember this statement: God loves you right where you are, period. So then it's like all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can stay how I am, right? And then the next line is, but he
So
just doesn't want you to stay there. Oh, darn, I got to get to work,
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
that statement or those two statements have always come back to me to say, so here's the question, do you choose to grow or not? Because you either move
yes, the
forward
choice.
or you go backwards. You never stay still.
That's
You
right.
just
This
don't.
it's life is dynamic. It's never static.
Right.
Oh
You're
boy.
always fighting entropy.
All
What?
right, well let's go ahead and
Well,
everybody, if you're enjoying this tonight, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. We have more coming. Just hang tight because they're ready to dive into this conversation
um,
even deeper. Okay,
yeah.
so let's talk
Hold on,
about
Michelle. Hold on 1 second before we move
yeah,
forward. Before I
yeah.
forget, because if you keep going like that, I'm gonna forget what I thought, and then I'll remember it, and it'll be too late to even think about
Okay. All right. You go.
Well, we were talking about, Darlene's talking about, this is a key to unlocking the difference in your life and to move forward or stay stuck. It's called the little word called forgiveness. If you can learn to forgive yourself, then you can start moving forward. If you don't know how to forgive yourself, you need to learn. If God can forgive you, then you can forgive yourself. Because that's baggage you'll carry. And I know this from experience that that's something that's going to carry with it. It's going to keep you from going in the right direction. It's going to hold you back until you learn how to forgive yourself, no matter what has happened in your life. Just remember, Paul was a murderer. He was forgiven, and he came to somebody who wrote 1/3 of the New Testament from that. That doesn't mean you get to escape the laws of man, but what it means is God will forgive you through Christ. And you got to learn to lay that down and forgive. And that is love. That's the beginning, the roots of love. And when you start love starting to build patience. And you don't start tolerating a lot of people. a lot better in your life when you go through that sequence of events. So, but you got to start to forgive.
Yep. Yeah, you can't really, if until we can forgive ourselves, we can't really offer forgiveness
That's right.
to other people because we hold that still within us. That's still a trigger, if you will, inside of us.
Yes.
And for me, the way that I view forgiveness is all along, God's just waiting for me to forgive myself. It's a no-brainer with him, so to speak. Um, it's just we get to forgive ourselves internally. And that's what we're called to do. I mean, that's how our soul evolves in my world, you know. So
But so routine, this is the big point. In NLP or in the neuropathy, more importantly, we map that routine of non-forgiveness and we speak to that. I know I spoke horribly about myself.
oh
I was
yes.
very unforgiving of myself. I hated myself. And
Yes.
it took a while to learn to not forgive myself, but to speak it.
Right. Well, when you look at that, we have somewhere between 60 and 90,000 thoughts a day,
That's a
right?
lot.
And
Mhm.
of that, 90 to 95% of those are repetitive.
Subconscious.
So it's what we thought
Exactly.
yesterday,
We
right?
repeat those on a regular basis.
And
It's
of
that
that,
photograph.
here's the big caveat for me. 80 to 85% of those are negative thoughts.
They
Yes,
are.
So
they are.
we're
We're
repeating
negative
those negative
bias.
patterns day after day after day after day. And here's the thing, whoever's listening to this, you might not have known that before now, and now you have that knowledge, and
Can't
you
take that
cannot
back.
forget this knowledge.
I like to look at it like crabs in the bucket because when you have that awareness and you start working your way out of that bucket to escape to go back into the bay area, everything else is gonna pull you back down. And it's
Mhm.
gonna try its best to pull you back down the bucket. But you got a
Well,
choice to start climbing
I mean,
out
what
of
we
it.
repeat is what we reinforce
Yes, that's a
for
mapping.
our own, patterns of our own behaviors. So I like it when I
100%.
love it when Darlene always asks, are you ready to, are you ready for some tools? Like she just, it's the way she says it. I'm like, yes, I'm ready for a new tool today. What can you offer me today?
Well, it's exactly right. We all need a mentor.
We do.
More
We all need
importantly,
it.
there's a
We
lot
all
of
need
mentors
somebody.
and coaches out there, but are they in alignment with where you want to go in life too? And that takes a lot of time. But the thing is, you need one because you're never going to become greater than you are without somebody pulling you up, lifting you up, and showing you the way.
Right.
Like the verse, let God be the lamp to your feet.
Mhm.
Let's make your path straight. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a little baby steps that lights up that path just enough for you to have the courage to take that step forward. Not give
Right.
you the full picture, but somebody's got to be out there holding that lamp with you and
Yeah,
walk
well,
with you.
actually, I love that. I love that because of what I was going to add to that is that we are limited because of our blind spots. Again, we can only know
Absolutely.
the things that we know, right? And when we
Hmm.
have somebody who can walk beside us, not in front of us, not in back of us,
Hmm.
but right beside us and hold that lantern just a little bit further out so they can light the path for us and perhaps point out a rock or two that's in the way so we don't trip and fall and start back over to zero or whatever. I think that that's really I think it's essential. I think every single person needs that person, not a friend because or not a
Not a
relative.
best friend.
Yes, because
You
yeah,
need someone who's
indeed, the
going to
best
be
friend
very
does come in
honest with you,
handy.
right?
Don't cut you
But
too much slack. You bet. Yeah.
right, because
Right.
I always say this, that when somebody loves you, they find it hard to speak the hard truths to you
That's
because
true.
they don't want to hurt you. And so, I mean, I've had the same coach for, gosh, 13, 14 years, something like that. And she still continually challenges me. And sometimes it's a welcome challenge, more times than not. And in transparency, sometimes it's not.
Learning hurts.
Yeah. Yes. Like, I remember the first time she said to me, she'd asked me about somebody and I'd given her my raw answer. And she said, "Huh, what about that's about you?" And I went, "Excuse me?" Like tonality again, right? And physiology.
Right.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yeah, what about that is about you? Because you're not capable of seeing something in somebody that doesn't exist in you."
Okay, hold up. Repeat that one
Yeah.
more time because
Right.
that's an
Say that
important
again.
line.
Yes. Say that
Mhm.
again.
You cannot see something in somebody that does not exist in you.
Exactly.
So
Hey,
when
I
we
hope
step
everybody heard that.
when we step in, there's two sides that I always like to point out, right? When we step into uh using our words in a negative way, like, you're ugly, I hate your outfit, whatever. What I know to be is that person can only say that because that's the way they feel about themselves, or that's the experience that they've had for themselves, right? But the other side of that, like the side nobody talks about, is when I say, "Oh my gosh, Michelle, you are such a beautiful woman. You are so beautiful." The only way that I can say that to you is because I have that beauty within me, right?
Mhm.
And I can embrace that and acknowledge that. And so it works both ways.
Oh, I
And
love
the
this.
reality is we just cannot see something in somebody that doesn't exist in us. It
You
just
just
is
made the
not
point
neural.
with power of the words right there.
Yep,
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
And
You
that
hit
right
home on
there,
that
that
one.
little bit of affirmation, that little bit of love that you just gave will carry miles
Mhm.
for another person receiving that
Yes.
versus
One,
the other,
yes.
the other way.
And that's why it's so important how we parent, I mean, like really going back and hitting repeat is always what we talk about. And yet I feel like that's a gift of grandchildren.
That is the gift of grandchildren.
We do
While we're
get
on
that
that
opportunity.
topic, while we're on that topic, because this forms the identity in the formative years with the children.
It
If you
does.
tell them to sit down, no, don't do that, quit that, you're nothing but trouble, blah, blah, they don't believe that. And they're going to act that way when they get in adulthood because that's who they believe they are. That's where
Yes.
behavior comes from. Identity always precedes behavior.
Yes. And I have one of my keynotes is called the lie in belief, which within the word belief
Mm-hmm.
itself is the word lie.
Lie.
And
That's
Mm-hmm.
so
right.
I love to talk about, just pick apart. I obviously am not a surface person. I introduce myself and boom, I dive right in, right? And I love like just what you said. Where's the lie in that belief that
Mm-hmm.
I have to beat you into submission, or I have to use language that makes you feel bad about who you are? There's so much wrapped up in that. And when we can break that open and tear it apart and reframe that in a way that serves us. And a
Right.
lot of it, sometimes we start with our parents did the best they could with the tools they had, right? And when we look at that identity, so for me, the conflict begins is when we have this identity, who we believe we are, because reality is who we are is God's, right? Or what
Exactly.
we are is God's, or how we are is
We
God's.
are spoken
Yeah,
into existence by God for a reason,
Right,
a purpose on this planet in the timeline we exist.
that's
right.
right.
Absolutely.
And so almost immediately we are being inundated with a different identity, right? You are this, you are
Bingo.
that. And if you can't, by the way, if you can't come to that negative self-identity, you remember all those thoughts and everything we have, we're going to just put out commercials and we're going to have programs and they're going to reinforce that,
That's right.
so, do those things that you need to do called, surgery or pills or whatever it is to enhance whatever, because that's the identity that our society says that we should be. I always talk about that when I speak because I'm the poster child of what a professional speaker is not. I'm 5'1". I carry about 40 pounds too much. Michelle's helping with it, side note. And I'm 64 years old. I've had no surgery to do anything, right? And so I am the poster child of loving myself for who I am in this very moment, not wanting to stay here. God calls me to more, right? But then the other very important um, thing for me, thing's a terrible choice of words, is understanding our values, what we value and who we see ourselves as we are. That is the great gift. When we can value, when we have a value system that complements our identity, that's when I call us like that whole person, right? But when there's a conflict on either side, like let's see, I value getting old, so I have a very strong value of growing old gracefully, right? And the identity of who I am as a professional speaker might say, oh, go get nipped and tucked, right?
Goodness.
Huge conflict there, right?
Huge. That's
Huge
huge.
conflict. So how can I be whole when I have that identity and value issue that's just banging against each other? And so therein
Right.
lies the work that I love
Full integrity to yourself.
dissecting.
Yeah, integrity to yourself. That's absolutely what I was going to say, because that is so true.
What I'd like for the audience to do is listening, get a piece of paper and write down 7 values.
Mm.
And start looking if those values are being met in what you're creating or doing in your life at the moment. And the answer is no. That's an alignment check you need to have with yourself.
Yeah. And sometimes, like when we start, part of the work, as you know, William and Michelle as well, is that a huge amount of the work that I do is in the subconscious mind, right? So our subconscious mind runs 90% of our life. Our conscious
in the
mind runs
garden.
10%. And so when we talk about values, we have to get to the unconscious level values.
Mhm.
And so that takes a little work, very
It
honestly.
does.
It takes probably a good at least 30, 40 minutes with my clients when we do this, because what I surfacely believe my value is, a value based on whatever. I mean, love, work, parenting, whatever. Chances are when I do that work, when we get to that unconscious level, all of a sudden it looks different. And it's really
Yes.
funny because one of the questions that we ask is, like, what's important to you about being a mom? Oh, love. Oh, being cared for or whatever. And then as we go through it, they're going, oh, wait a minute, where did that come from? I'm like, oh, thank you, unconscious mind, for helping me out. And then they discover.
You brought up a real serious point. Most of us associate our values with our work in our roles in life. Rarely do we associate the values of who we were created to be in the beginning with.
Yeah.
Those values, whether you value honesty, integrity, you value love, security, the main things that really set peace in your life, that that you're in alignment, then what God designed you to be. Curious George. I'm a curious George, and you're a curious Georgette. We really love curiosity, and my experience with curiosity, you can't be right, because humans love to be right, but you can't be right in curiosity. You can't be in the same occupied space. And so when I started learning that, and I started learning more about my value system, because I get curious. And I know I've used that word a lot, and it's a great word to use.
When we tell our unconscious mind, like when I say, I'm so curious what's behind that versus what's behind that. What's behind it is a very conscious level thing. But when I say I'm curious about it, it's like my unconscious mind goes, "Ooh, let's dig into this. This is going to be fun." And so then you have that other part of you that starts revealing itself, and that's where the magic is, right? That's where the growth is.
Fun is more important than gets to be right, or I have to.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing the right words to convince the subconscious mind to open up and start receiving.
Right. Exactly.
Permission to go into the garden and see what's growing there.
Isn't that where it begins? Permission. You need to give yourself permission to actually tap into that and be curious about where you can go. And I mean, this is all about awareness, right? You need to be aware of you and where you need to be honest with yourself right now. That's that's where you need to be, is honest with yourself right now as to who you are. I can remember when William and I was going to say, this is bringing back so many memories from a couple of years ago, William. Walking into that leadership class, and I was just dead set. I wasn't doing this. I didn't sign up for this. This is not what I signed up for. I'm not doing
shields up. She was totally resistant, and a lot of us are, because we're going into something in uncertainty. That's the first thing automatically goes up, your shields.
Yeah, it's the way that we describe it is that, it's your comfort zone, right? Like, I don't care how miserable I am in my life. I know the sun's going to rise tomorrow. So I'll put up with fill in the blank, the job I hate, the person who mistreats me, the whatever, just fill it in, right? However, that's my comfort zone. In order
Mhm.
to get out of that comfort zone, you have to go through fear. You must.
Mm-hmm.
That is
That's
just the
right.
next caveat to the learning and then to the growth, right? And so 99% of the world lives in the comfort and they show up at places of training that's going to transform their life with their dukes up. Want
As I
that?
say,
Want that?
the hands come up, the shields come
Mhm.
up. I mean, you name it, it's
Yeah,
there.
we
That
see it all
wall
the
is
time.
there. Yes.
Yes.
Imagine, and just one thing that helped me. You can imagine this fear. Okay, if you can imagine it being a monkey that's screaming, going nuts. Okay, it's just loud as all can be. And that's the one thing that's telling you, warning, warning, you're getting out of the comfort zone. You're into the neutral zone, going into the danger zone. It's easy to say, monkey, I hear you loud and clear. Here's a banana, go to the back. We're doing this. That's starting to put authority in your words and letting you know that you address the concern. You're not denying it, you're not burying it, you're not yelling at it.
Mhm.
You're letting yourself know it's okay. But we are going to move forward today, even if it's just one step. We're just going to do that. And then when
Yeah.
you start doing that, you're going to start trusting yourself
Yeah.
because you're doing what you said you're going to do. Even though the monkey's back there, just keep handing them bananas. They'll be
But you're
okay.
also breaking down that wall one little step at a time,
Mhm.
which,
Right.
One banana
is
at a
highly
time.
encouraging.
Yep. And in my world, I mean, what I recognize, especially with like we have our five negative emotions that we work with: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually when there's anger, it kind of like is like a balloon, it pops, and that
Mm-hmm.
residue goes into one of those other negative emotions, and they just build up.
True.
And so when we
That's a
like,
good way
let's
to look
just
at it.
use that, just using anger as an example. By the time we're 7 years old, we call our 0 to 7 our imprint years.
Mhm.
Okay. And so by the time we're 7 years old and we go out into the big, scary world, we already have our backpacks packed on anger,
Right.
sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, love, joy, happiness, all of it, right? And we go out and we have an experience. But what happens, but somewhere between 0 and 7, we have an experience of anger. Maybe we saw somebody fighting, like our parents fighting, and that's our first experience of anger, which also what elicits fear,
It does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? And so then maybe we get into maybe our sibling steals our toy, takes our toy away from us. So then there's another layer of fear. And then we get into, kindergarten and somebody steals our lunch and their anger, excuse me, another layer of anger. And then here we are in junior high and somebody steals our guy or our girl, and that's another layer of anger.
Right.
So then when we turn, 16, 18, 20 years old and we're on the road and somebody cuts us off and well, I'm going to get them. And that whole bubble decides to burst in that moment, right?
Yep.
And we call it road rage. And I always know that that problem is never the problem. It's rooted in something very, very old and very, very deep. And so in order to um, overcome that anger, it's going to take some work. And I do agree, William, saying to that critic in the brain, um, the monkey, hey, you go take a back seat. I got this. I'm going to do some work around this. So for me, what I would always say is, I would say to my unconscious mind, thank you for serving and protecting me, because that is the role of our unconscious mind, is to service and protect us. And I need you to know that I've got this now. Like I literally would have that conversation with me and still do sometimes. I got this. That's feeding the monkey, right? So now that I know that that's taken care of, I can address whatever's at hand. And and by doing that, then we can begin dissecting that anger, that sadness, that fear, that hurt, that guilt, whatever, right? Or even how we look at happiness or how we look at joy or whatever, because we get, again, different definitions for the words.
Absolutely.
It's arriving.
Absolutely.
It's choosing. I guess for me, I got to a point where I was literally dead. I was dying on the bed. And I got to the point and said, what is this life for? Why did I live it that way? And that changed everything. that was the forgiveness, because I actually asked God for forgiveness for the behavior of what I created during that life, and it was all stemmed from what I believed I was.
Hmm.
And
Wrapped up in that identity.
it's wrapped up in
Mhm.
that, in all those roles and everything that I assumed was me, and it wasn't me.
Yes.
But I was able to start saying not only the forgiveness, but after the forgiveness, I start questioning, why am I acting this way? Because here's what's not going to happen. It's not going to be like it was before. I just received a second lot of life, a second measure, if you will, that a
Mhm.
lot of people don't get. So I'm not going to waste it this time. So where is it that I've been picking this stuff up, and this whole belief system, what I believed it drove this train into a mountain and about literally destroyed every car in that train.
Yep.
Until picking it up to pieces, it's letting go and saying, okay, God, I need your help with this. I know I'm here for a reason. You put me back here. You literally put me back here
Hmm.
with the parts to be able to live. Basically, I need some guidance and help. That's why it's so important that we get people like you, Darlene, help us interpret and find a way after those crashes too. Because a lot of times it's going to take a crash in your life before you realize there's something really wrong, and it brings you to a point and say, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't know what to do.
Yep.
I don't
I,
know where I'm at. I need help.
yep. I love that point that you just made, William, and I want to dissect that just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That this is the thing that I see and hear, and you guys do too, I'm sure, Michelle, especially, and because I'm so intimate with your work, right? Is that people don't want things to be hard. They want
Mm-hmm.
things to be easy, right? And there's absolutely no growth in easy. There's none. Look how easy some people make their kids' lives. Those kids can't even grow up to be responsible adults because they have no experience with hard. They have no experience for speaking up for themselves. They have no experiences for consequences. Like
Very
no
true.
judgment attached. Please understand, I'm saying this without judgment. I've got my own stories wrapped around that, right? And when we can understand that those mountains, the hills, the mountains, the valleys, they are all designed for one thing, and that is for our growth. And for me, I call it evolution of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
And
Yeah.
it's when we sit in that for too long, William, I was exactly where you were. I was like reliving
Mm-hmm.
my story as you were talking about the day that I just wanted to die. I literally said to God, hey, if today's the day you want me, this is the funny part. You have my permission. Like I
Oh,
gave
you were
God
giving him
permission. How cool
permission.
is that?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
Well,
like
that's
that. Okay.
really
I
asserting
don't think I've
authority
ever
there,
heard
isn't it?
anybody give
Yeah.
God permission to
Oh
say, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead and
Yeah,
take
yeah.
me.
And then actually my next thought was, well, if God doesn't want me, who makes that decision? That literally was my mindset that day. And that was the I would tell you that that was the best worst day of my life because that's what caused me to pick up a
That's
phone,
what
right?
everything changed.
But I
That's
did
what
the
everything.
bargaining. My son was going to Afghanistan and I knew that he was going to be boots on the ground. I mean, he's an army guy.
Right.
And so I was doing that bargaining with God. You do remember he's my only son, right? You get that, God. Do you remember that? I mean, like I was just going at it. And on the other way, I was in a toxic environment at my work. I didn't know how to deal with toxicity. I I always treated people with kindness and love. So this was new to me. And it was like the perfect storm, right? So all of that happens. And I am so grateful for it. So grateful
This is
because
key.
I
This is key
could
right
not
there.
have evolved without those. I couldn't be the woman that I am clear God has called me to be without that experience, bottom line.
We
But
all have
I
to go through
chose
the
to
fire.
grow. Therein lies the difference.
Okay, well, let's take a moment to ask our individuals who are watching tonight. And if you're catching this, just because it came across your feed, hit that subscribe button. And we're going to dive a little deeper into this because I know so many people are resonating with this conversation right here that we are having because so many people are living this way right today for sure. Um, that's a hard one, Durley. Knowing you as much as I do, that's really hard to hear.
Mhm.
Um, but yet I was in a very similar situation. And that's why I'm telling everyone here tonight out here on YouTube, if you're coming across this video or you're paying attention at all, have this hard conversation that she's having, because I too, as well as William, can say as well, it was the best revelation we could have had. And moving forward in that leadership, that, that role of getting someone to help us move forward and get through the trauma of what was occurring is the best step that you can take. So I highly recommend, going and connecting with Darlene after tonight's broadcast
Absolutely.
and being in that moment with her and share that and find a direction to take forward with her in that respect. So, wow.
I have a question for the audience too. I know when you come into real world events like this, toxicity in the workplace, you had a bad relationship going on, your health is not great. How do you respond to it, or do you react? And do you know the difference?
Mm.
Darlene specifically said she was grateful for the hardship she went through, and she would not be the woman that she is today because she would have not grown. And given that humanity has a negative bias in its way of being on it, it's easy to go and let go and fall into the drift and complain about it, whine about it, moan about it, whatever you're going to do about it. But rarely does anybody say, I am so thankful that I died that day.
Mm-hmm.
Literally,
Yes.
I died that day.
Yeah.
In many different ways, on different planes.
I mean,
And
I'm
I
very
can't be more,
grateful. I'm
I
very
cannot
grateful to
be
God. Yeah.
so much grateful I
Yeah.
am today that I lived that experience,
Yeah.
because it turned me into a darkness, to the darkness in me, into a light that people can see,
Yeah.
that there is hope out there. And you have a choice. Everything in your life is a choice. And you make it.
Yes.
Whether you know you're making it or not, you're making it.
Yeah, I want to make sure everybody understands that this is a place to be safe in. There is hope.
Mhm.
There is a lot of hope here. Again, connect with Darlene. We'll give you the details here in a little bit, but we're going to finish this
She has tools.
conversation. Yeah, she
If you're
has
like me,
tools.
I love tools, especially new tools, because I want to go try them out.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Something that you said, William, the word choice. Let's just talk about that for a quick second, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
this was a game changer for me. Because I truly, truly believe, so we live in cause or effect. We either live it with our reasons or we look for our results, right? So I
Exactly.
always found a reason. Oh, God wants me to stay like me, how I like to tell God, you guys, so God wants me to be like this. God wants me to, I didn't realize, even as a grown woman, I did not realize that I truly had a choice in moving forward. And so when the first time I heard choice is a powerful thing, suffering is always optional.
Yes.
And
Repeat that one more time. Say it one more time so everybody can hear that loud and clear.
Choice is a powerful thing.
Yes.
And suffering is always optional.
That's right.
And I'm not talking about that moment. Sometimes we do suffer at hearing the loss of somebody that we love, whatever. I'm not talking about that. But immediately after that, we get to look at that and say, do I choose to stay in this realm of sadness and whatever? Or am I going to surrender that? And I will even say, fall on the faith that I have professed for how many years, and know that this is part of a greater design than I could ever even know. Right?
I love those words all together. First and foremost, surrender. That is
Yes.
very tender right there.
Yes,
Boom.
I
There
got
it
the
is.
chills. I even got the chills saying it, because I'm thinking of a couple of people in my world, right? Their spouse passed away, and and they literally 2 years later are stuck the same place that they are or were the moment that they heard of their spouse's death. Like the same, and there is nowhere that I know of, now you guys are way better at scripture than I am, that God says, just stay there and suffer in that and don't trust in a greater plan. Exactly the opposite, right?
I haven't read that in the Bible, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
No, but
exactly.
that's what it is. It's living in history. and it's living in remorse,
Well,
regret.
yeah,
All the
absolutely. You're
R's that
living
are
in your own
negatively
story.
biased
which
on it.
is
And
like, I don't even know, like so many people, and I'm guilty, until I learned these tools and stuff, I was guilty of the same thing, living always in the past. So always,
Well, isn't that
well,
the story that you're telling yourself so that you stay in your comfort?
yes.
I
So
mean,
you can
that's
be a
comfort.
victim.
in the
Yes.
past, in the memories. My pastor puts it in a great way. You're in a rut, and it's really a grave with the ends kicked out of it
Mm-hmm.
because you just can't get out of that rut, and you're in your own grave. You dug
Mhm.
it by
Yeah.
Well, I'll
repeating
tell you,
over and over.
ever since our guest last week, Polly Barra, he said, pick up your mat. Let me tell you, that has stuck in my head. Pick
Yeah.
up your mat. That's what God said. Pick up your
The
mat.
mat, Darlene, was the guy that could not walk, that was out of the pool. You remember that part of the scripture?
Mhm.
He had a mat, and
Oh,
Jesus
Matt.
did.
Mat.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
Pick up your
mat,
mat.
right? His own mat, and
Yes.
Jesus didn't touch him. He didn't put spit on dirt, rub it on his eyes. He didn't lay. He just said, "Get up, get
Yeah.
up." And this is a great topic of what we're talking about from last week that applies to this week. You
Yeah,
assume the identity of those that you
exactly.
surround yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what he became. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with him. He had to pick up. He got up and he rolled up his mat with his stuff, and he left. And he gets to work through all that. But the bad word was he had the faith to get up.
That
And
I was
those
hoping
are
you
out
were
there
going to
that are
say the
stuck,
faith.
Yep. He
you
had
gotta
the
have
faith
the
to actually
faith.
keep
There is
going.
something better out there because God's intentional with a purpose. We all go through pain and we all go through loss. It's part of life.
100%.
But the great part of it is it's only a chapter.
Mhm.
There's a new chapter waiting if you just turn the page.
Yeah. And we can even go back to
Absolutely.
those other chapters and rewrite them
Oh,
because
Yes, we
absolutely.
can. Oh, speaking of which,
Absolutely.
that's a great because what I've learned to put in my mind is the event is the framework. The emotions are how we painted in that framework
Yep.
from the event.
Exactly.
And I can
yes.
paint different colors.
Yes. I always equate that to like it's how our neurology stored it, how our negative bias handled that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is. Like, just as an example, one of the things when I was 16 years old, our band teacher came in and said, hey, they're not renewing my contract next year, so I'm leaving, right? And me and my other brothers and sisters in band decided that we're going to go to the school board and we are going to tell them that they are not going to fire our band teacher, 16 years old, being kids that we were, right?
Oh, rebel in you. I like it.
Oh, so off we go, right? So that was our plan. We're going to go and make our presence known. So we walked in and we lined up against the wall and we just stood there like we were all that, right? And at some point, one of the adults on the school board said, hey, you kids in the back, what do you want? And I mean, silence. We never thought past our noses about what we'd actually say if we were called on. So all of a sudden, I decide that I'm going to speak. And I open up my mouth and it sounds like, you don't even know what you done for our band teacher. Like just like it was kind of like, ooh, what was that came out of my mouth? And so in that moment, like choice is a powerful thing, right? I decided that I couldn't speak in public. And I
Mm-hmm.
carried that for years that I could not speak in public.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
because if I do, I'm embarrassed, I'm humiliated, I sound like a crow. I mean, fill in the blank, right? Because that was the identity that I came up with based on that experience. And so when I went back after I started doing this work, it was one of the things that I went back and looked at and I thought, you know what? I was very courageous that day. I did use my voice, and it took a lot of bravery, as ungraceful as it might have sounded.
It does take a lot of bravery to stand
So
up
I
at
literally
16.
realigned my neurology. I rewrote that story.
I so identify with that because I had an incident from my parents when I was young, and they came together, and it was horrible. And I got in between them, and I thought I could do something about it. And my takeaway from that, at 5 or 6 years old, similar years, I was not important from that. I was not of any influence. I cannot change the outcome. There's a lot of things I took it from a negative bias because it automatically went there because we're programmed that way as negative bias, like we discussed. It took me until 50. What was it? How much? I'm 60 now. Yeah. So 2 years, 58 years old to unwind that one little thing. One little thing that changed. I could have been significant during that time. May not realized it, but I may have stopped something that could have elevated past what it was. We don't know those things, but until I respoke it in a positive framework, I live that way.
Yep.
And
So let's
the great
remind
question-
everyone, you don't have to stay there.
No,
You're not
you don't. But the
stuck.
great question is, what's under your hood that you don't know what's going on until you lift it up and start looking at it?
100%.
Well, but you're also going to have to be very honest with yourself. So let's invite that conversation of honesty with ourselves. And again, take the advice that William, placed out here. Sit down, write out those 7 things about you, and where you're at. Are you aligned? You'll
Listen,
see
it's a
when you write
journey.
it down.
It's
It
a
is a
journey.
journey.
Yep.
We still have not uncovered things that are impacting us today. None of us in this room.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
100%.
We've still got things to work through too. The
Yes.
thing is that's important is you start somewhere. And you may not know how to be honest with yourself.
Right.
That takes
Yes.
time too.
Well,
That
to that
does.
point, the number one person we lie to is ourselves. Let's just get really real.
Exactly.
That's real. That is real.
I tell you, I am the world's best at lying to myself about my physical health. I am just like the best, like the queen, right? And I'm slowly knocking the tiara off and getting really real with myself, right? And I get to say, remember, the number one person you lie to is yourself.
And if you lie to yourself, guess what you're going to do to others?
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to be true to yourself first before
Yeah.
you can start being true to everybody
Mhm.
else around you. And see, it also goes back to the point of having a mentor. See, Michelle is a nutritionist. She specializes not only in the nutrition, but the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
That's what makes her potent to have on your team to figure out what's going on metabolically and how everything's working on a cellular level, how you're perceiving it as well.
Still
Because
shows
it's
up in
not
your
habits
mindset.
we're changing. We're getting to roots.
Right.
See, and I
Right.
think that to your point, William, I think that is what I love, what I do so much. We do something called timeline therapy. And it is always about like getting to the root. Like, I don't have to know a story. Some people are so traumatized by their story that stops them from doing anything about it because of the story. I don't have to know that. I just have to know what emotions are you experiencing, right? Like tell me what it is you're experiencing. As a matter of fact, when my son came back from Afghanistan one night, he called me and he was just like, you don't know what it's like, Mom. You don't know what it's like to see, a friend shot and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you're right, I don't. Literally a Holy Spirit moment. Okay, let me pre-frame it with that. And I go, you're right, I don't know that. And then all of a sudden, Holy Spirit, I don't. But what emotion are you? I met him, right? I met him with his tonality. So what emotion are you feeling? Goes, what is that? He goes, oh, I'm so angry. I'm so angry. I'm like, oh man, I got anger, So then I could match him. I didn't have the story he's had, but I certainly had those emotions. I was very familiar with those,
You
right?
connected that way.
Yeah. And it's not
Exactly.
about the story. It's about the emotions that we attach to the story. And that's why we can be sitting around on Thanksgiving with our family, our siblings, and look at them and go, oh, Michelle, that is not how that happened.
Right.
No, you got that all wrong. Because your neurology stored it an entirely different way than my neurology did.
Exactly.
That's what
Exactly.
makes court of law so difficult in testimonies, because everybody's perspective is different from the facts that actually happened during that
Right.
moment in time.
Yes, and that's what, like for me, I think that's one of the principles of the healing of the world is for people to acknowledge that perspective is exactly that. When you
Mhm.
walk through a door, the only way that you can see what's in front of you is through that door. Well, scientifically, nobody walks through that same door in the exact same way with the exact same story. I mean, I've got identical twin granddaughters, and I am telling you, they never walk through that door in the same way.
She's talking about quantum physics at the moment.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's everybody. We're bombarded with so much information, like Darlene. I don't know, million bits of data per second. All right. And then we have filters that we apply to. Some are distorted, some are important, some are categorized not important, and some are tied to emotions of how that information comes. So we have this great filtering system. And that's only capable of capturing maybe 150 to 250 bytes of information per second. So you got this massive amount that's just blowing by you, but you only see that small part in that moment in time on it. And that becomes our perspective of life, and that's a lens we live through as well.
Yeah.
On it.
Yeah. What makes it through our conscious mind, what gets it through our conscious mind through all that filter is 7 plus or minus 2 bits. And then it goes, then we have to unconsciously tear that apart in a matter of milliseconds, right?
Yeah.
And that equals our behavior, which equals our identity. I mean, that's the way that it plays out. And this is the gift. Nothing is right and nothing is wrong. It's just what is. It's always about, and do you choose to do something about it? Otherwise, as your coach, I'm going to call you on it and say, oh, are you enjoying that little cesspool of victimhood? Because that's exactly what you've got yourself into. You want to be a victim, go ahead. I'm just not your coach.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, well, we obviously have to bring this back to the table for another conversation as we have come to the close of this night's podcast. And again, if you enjoyed tonight's podcast, if this resonated with you at all, remember what Darlene said, you have a special way of saying that. If I see it in me, what does it
Can't
mean?
see something in somebody that doesn't exist in you.
See, she says it so much better than I do.
You can see it is in you. It's a very simple way.
Absolutely.
You can see it in others, it exists in you.
That's absolutely correct. So tonight, if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Come back next Monday night. We will be back here, and we'll be bringing Darlene back. We're going to have another conversation because we need to dive a little deeper. Again, if you enjoyed this at all, or if you would love to connect with Darlene, how can they get in touch with you?
So you can always email me at Darlene, and it's DERLENE at You Empowered Services, and it's YOU and then empoweredservices.com.
So there you have it. Get in your email tonight, message her, have that conversation with her. I promise you it'll be a great conversation. So, Mr. William, we've wrapped up another Monday night.
I'm just walking away thinking about this on this last closing statement. I see a stick in your eye, but I forgot about that big log in mine.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through that.
Wow,
Yeah.
that was good.
So let's get curious and start learning how to pull logs and sticks out of each other's eyes and start loving on one another. And making this world a better place. This is a great place to start, is in awareness. This is where it all starts, is saying that you come to surrender. I surrender. And there's strength and there is power in surrender, more than you know. It's not a weakness. And then at that point, that's when the work begins. And roll up your sleeves. Yes, it's going to take some effort. It's going to take time. But I tell you what, the fruit that comes from it will be well worth the effort. And that's the way God meant it to be.
Yeah.
So enjoy
Amen.
the journey, not the destination. We love you, and we want to see you back next Monday. And Darlene, I really appreciate you coming on with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Darlene.
I
Really
always like
appreciate
learning.
you. I know it's been a long day for you, but I'm so grateful that you
Hey,
did this with us.
As soon as I tap into the passion, all bets are off with me.
I know it. I can just see when your face lights up too. I absolutely love it. I've enjoyed.
This is a great way to get energy too. This is
Yes.
bringing energy into the room that's fueling everybody, and that
Absolutely.
usually means the spirit's in the room as well. And that's
That's
how
true.
that happens. Versus
is
being
true.
negative bias, if it's an energy robber. So you can tell when you're getting fueled and when it's being taken from you.
Yeah.
And I love that when the woman touched Jesus's garment, she had so much faith and believed that would heal her. He said somebody drew the energy from it. And you can tell that because we're spiritual beings.
Right.
Yeah.
On it. So when you come
That's
into
a whole
the room,
nother conversation, the energy.
that's a whole nother
Right?
conversation,
Oh
but this
my
is
gosh.
also part of NLPT. This is linguistics. This is physiology part of it. This is energy.
Like I
So
said, Darlene's
we'll
gonna be
table
back
this
to
one
join
for
us.
the next one. All right, everybody.
All right,
Thank you for
everyone.
joining us
Bye,
tonight.
everyone. Thank
God
Have a
bless you.
great night. Thank you, Darlene. We love you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.